Kegel exercises for moms, the complete step-by-step Kegel tutorial for 2022, but we are taking it beyond traditional Kegels. Let's talk about it. So before we jump right into the tutorial, I need to make a few announcements first. Number one, this video is gonna be longer because it is a step-by-step tutorial and it is meant for you to be able to practice right along with me. So it's a longer video. Please don't skip ahead or skip parts because every part of the tutorial builds upon the last. Number two, if you have any questions or insights or concerns that pop up as you're watching the video, go ahead and write them down. As a matter of fact, I encourage you to watch the video all the way through the first time, taking notes and listening, and then go back and watch a second time and actually practice along with me. If any questions, concerns, or comments do come up, I want you to leave them below in the comment section. I would love to hear from you. Any questions, any comments, or concerns that you have, go ahead and put them down below in the comment section. And number three, we're going to talk about some preliminary and sort of housekeeping things first before we get into the step-by-step tutorial. So let's get started. Step number one, we need to make sure we're actually a good candidate for Kegels. So if you've watched this channel, you know how I feel that Kegels can be a small part of your pelvic floor program or training, but they absolutely are not, excuse me, they absolutely are not the end all be all or our main focus for our pelvic floor. If you are gonna do Kegels, mamas, please make sure that you're actually a good candidate because for many women, Kegels are not effective, they are not enough, and for some of us, they even make things worse. My best advice for knowing for sure if Kegels can be a part of your pelvic floor training is to get an examination, an internal and external exam and assessment by a highly qualified, well-experienced and trained pelvic floor physical therapist. If you're not quite sure what that is, I've got a video where I explain all of that. Number two, go ahead and gather the materials you'll need for this step-by-step tutorial. The first thing you're gonna need is a chair. You wanna choose something sturdy where you can rest your feet flat on the floor, nothing too tall or too short. You want your knees and your hips to be at about a 90-degree angle. You also wanna be able to sit comfortably in this chair without lounging back or slouching back or overly arching your back. You're also gonna need something to squeeze between your legs. Now for this tutorial, I'll be showing you with a yoga block or a small fitness ball. You could easily use a pillow or a cushion or even a rolled up towel. Just something to squeeze between your legs when we get to that part of the tutorial. All right, now that we've got the preliminaries out of the way and we've got our materials, let's go ahead and jump right into this complete Kegel step-by-step tutorial for 2022. Step number one, come to a seated position and bring your back away from the back of your chair. Go ahead and place your hands underneath your bottom to find your sit bones. Here's a model pelvis, and this is the pelvis sitting straight up. I'm gonna turn it now so you can see the bone here and here are your sitting bones. It's important when practicing Kegels in a sitting position that you actually sit on your sit bones, and I'll show you now how to find them. Place your hands right up under your bottom in the chair. Remember to have your back move slightly away from the back of the chair. Rock side to side, back and forth, and you will feel these very hard knobby knob bones sticking down. Those are your sit bones. Find a position where you're comfortably sitting on them. Now, if you're overly arched forward, that's not a good position of alignment. If you're overly rounded back, that's not a good position of alignment. You want your body to be aligned well, and you want to be set up on your sit bones, right? The next step in our setup for our Kegel exercise, you want to bring your rib cage over your pelvis. Now this is important, mamas, because the positioning of our rib cage and pelvis is going to directly impact and affect what's going on in our core and our pelvic floor. You also want to make sure that your head is not jutted forward or pulled too far back. As best you can, you want things to be lined up in a very neutral way, meaning head is in a line with your body and your ear is in a line with your shoulders. Your rib cage is stacked up over your pelvis. And you might want to do this in a mirror to really make sure that you're getting it right. Okay, now that we've got you set up correctly, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to focus our Kegel exercises, moms, with our breath. And this is so important because the diaphragm, which is your primary breathing muscle, it sits underneath and within the rib cage. Your pelvic floor, which is your pelvic floor muscles, they sit in and are connected to the pelvis. And as you breathe, the rib cage expands and things move down. You should feel a lengthening or a letting go in the pelvic floor. On an inhale, as you exhale, the pelvic floor should naturally recoil and come back up, and the rib cage should come back in and contract down and in some. So, in order to time our Kegels with our breath, we're gonna focus on the exhale. All right? So, right now, I just want you to breathe. Just as you normally would, just breathe. And try to see if you can get your inhale to go down, 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 and feel your pelvic floor relaxing, and lengthening into the chair you're sitting on. And on an exhale, I don't want you to consciously contract or tighten the pelvic floor. I just want you to allow your belly to fall back in. So actually go ahead and place a hand on your low belly, right? As you inhale, I want you to feel your belly expand outward into your hand just a little bit. This is not a big, huge balloon or belly breath. That actually puts too much stress and pressure onto the core and pelvic floor. Gentle belly rise on an inhale. Feel the pelvic floor relax and allow your belly to relax back in on an exhale. So inhale, gentle belly rise, feel your pelvic floor relax into the chair. On an exhale, belly contracts back in, feel your pelvic floor slightly tensioning, okay? Now, what we're going to do is focus on the muscles where the pelvic floor actually has attachments to the pelvis. Let me show you. So here is a model pelvis where you actually see the pelvic floor muscles. As you can see, mamas, the pelvic floor attaches from sit bone to sit bone and from our tailbone to our pubic bone at the front. So this entire area, which can be looked at as sort of a diamond shape between your legs, the entirety of this is your pelvic floor. And if we take an internal view, we're now looking inside of the pelvis. The deep muscles of the pelvic floor also need to be targeted when we're doing our Kegel practice. So right now, mamas, all I want you to do is imagine that there is a line between your tailbone and your pubic bone. And as you inhale, I want you to allow a gentle belly rise and feel your pelvic floor relax and lengthen. On an exhale, mamas, I want you to feel and imagine you're bringing your tailbone to pubic bone closer together, like this. Inhale, release. Okay? Inhale, feel the pelvic floor relax. On an exhale, on an out breath, bring tailbone to pubic bone. Inhale, release. On an exhale, imagine and feel you're drawing your pubic bone to your tailbone and release. Now check in with your body and see, how did that feel for you? Just those few changes of looking at our posture first and putting the pelvic floor attention with the exhale. Did you feel a difference? Are you already feeling something that feels totally opposite than a traditional Kegel? All right, let's add in another layer. There's some sirens going off in the back. I'm sorry if you hear that. Please ignore it. Okay. Now, sitting bone to sitting bone. Our pelvic floor also has muscle attachments there. So on this round, mamas, on an inhale, just like before, allow your belly to gently rise out into your hand. And on an exhale, I want you to imagine, feel, and draw sit bone to sit bone like this. Inhale, gentle belly rise, pelvic floor relaxes. On an exhale, bring sitting bones closer together and feel your belly come in away from your hand. Inhale, pelvic floor relaxes, gentle belly rise. Exhale, imagine and feel drawing a line between sitting bone and sitting bone as if you're bringing them together, and feel your belly coming in away from your hand. All right, so let's check in again. How did that feel? Comment down below and let me know. So we've now practiced in a good sitting position. We've found our sit bones. Our back is away from the chair and our head is lifted and high. Now we're going to practice putting those two movements together. On this round, mamas, we're going to bring pubic bone to our tailbone, sitting bone to sitting bone. So now we're going to imagine on an inhale, we're relaxing, gentle belly rise, pelvic floor relaxes. On an exhale, draw pubic bone to pubic bone. Tailbone to pubic bone, sit bone to sit bone, gather and lift. Inhale, relax. Feel your belly relax, feel your pelvic floor lengthen. And on an exhale, mamas, imagine, sense, and feel you're bringing tailbone to pubic bone and sitting bone to sitting bone and lifting up and in. All right, how did that step feel? Every step along the way, we're gonna check in and see what we could feel. And what you should be realizing is this, mamas, when doing Kegel exercises correctly and really incorporating the breathing, the posture and alignment, and the gathering together of the pelvic floor and trying to lift up and in, you will feel so much more. You will feel your core and abdominal wall connecting. You might even feel things in your low back connecting, and you're definitely going to be feeling your pelvic floor contracting. Sit bone to sit bone, tailbone to pubic bone. We're gonna gather and lift. Imagine you are a jellyfish, mama. We're gonna gather, lift, and release. Gather, lift up and in, and release. All right? Now we're going to add in a squeeze between the legs. The reason why is because our inner thigh muscles are directly connected and integrated with our pelvic floor. So by squeezing in, we're activating the inner thighs and directly affecting the pelvic floor and the core to get even more bang for buck. Now, I have a yoga block here and also an exercise ball. Remember, you can choose a cushion, rolled up towel, a small pillow, anything you want. Go ahead now and put your cushion or block just between your knees. And we're gonna add this layer in, mamas. So we're going to inhale, gentle belly rise, feel your pelvic floor, relax down. On an exhale, tailbone to pubic bone, sit bone to sit bone, lift, and squeeze. On an inhale, relax everything back down. All right? On an exhale, mamas, imagine, sense, and feel you're bringing tailbone to pubic bone, and you're bringing sit bone to sit bone. You're lifting, and as you lift, exhale, exhale, squeeze. Inhale, release. Again, imagine, sense, and feel a line of tension drawing your tailbone to pubic bone, sit bone to sit bone as you're exhaling, and you are at the same time squeezing as you feel the pelvic floor lift. Relax back down. On this last step, mamas, we're gonna add in an audible breath. And what this does is to really, really fire up the core, speak to the pelvic floor, and get everything moving together, all right? Check back in with your alignment. Make sure you're still sitting on your sit bones. Your back is away from the back of the chair. Feet planted firmly on the floor as best you can in a 90-degree angle. You want your head in line with your body, rib cage over your pelvis. All right, on an exhale this time, mamas, I want you to do a ha breath, as if you're fogging up a mirror. Nice and slow. Let me show you. On an exhale, so you would inhale, exhale, as you're doing the ha breath, on your exhale, you're gently squeezing your cushion between your legs. You're bringing tailbone to pubic bone, sit bone to sit bone, gathering and lifting up and in. On an inhale, relax and feel your pelvic floor lengthen and relax. So let's practice together. Inhale, gentle belly rise, everything relaxes. Exhale, tailbone to pubic bone, sit bone to sit bone, lift your entire pelvic floor, squeeze and ha. Inhale, relax. Exhale, sit bone to sit bone, tailbone to pubic bone, squeeze, ha breath, and lift. Again, check in with your body. How did that feel for you? Now, I want to go back. Remember that baseline you took. Now, just forget about your posture. Sit any way you want. Do whatever you want with your head, your back, anything, and go back to squeeze and squeeze and release like you're stopping the flow of urine. Go ahead and do that now. All right? Take stock of how that feels in your body. Now, I want you to set yourself up in a chair. I want you to get in touch with your alignment, with your posture, head in alignment, your ears in line with your shoulders, rib cage over your pelvis, natural curves of the spine, not overly arched or overly rounded. And this time, mamas, on an exhale, we're gonna bring tailbone to pubic bone, sit bone to sit bone, on a ha breath, and squeeze. Are you ready? Okay, inhale, everything relaxes. Exhale, gather, lift, ha breath, and squeeze. All the way to the end of the breath, mamas, as long as you can. Inhale, relax, let everything go. All right, again, on an exhale. And it's okay if you're not doing it exactly while I'm saying it. Breathe in your own time, all right? On an exhale, mamas, you're gonna imagine, sense a line of tension between the tailbone and the pubic bone, and a line of tension or a string pulling your sit bones together, pulling your tailbone and pubic bone together. So you have this gathering together of the pelvic floor. After you gather together, you're gonna see if you can lift up and in as you squeeze and ha. Now, mamas, you should feel your core firing. You should feel your back firing. You should feel your pelvic floor responding in a way that it hasn't before. And if you don't, that is just fine. Like I said, this is a tutorial. It is a step-by-step guide. It is meant for you to watch, listen, take notes, and come back to. Practice again and again. And once you've gotten that in place, once you can really feel your core firing, once you can really feel those muscles gathering, once you can really squeeze and do that ha breath on the exhale, mamas, you will see how these type of Kegels, this type of pelvic floor muscle training goes so far beyond traditional Kegels. And then you will start to see how you can incorporate this into everyday movements and also into your fitness and exercise. If you have any questions at all, post them below in the comments and click right here to keep the momentum going with more core and pelvic floor education.